Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he checked the readings on his scanner. The mining station on Kepler 442b was supposed to be a routine assignment, but nothing about this place felt routine. The planet's surface was covered in strange blue vegetation that seemed to move without wind, and the air had an electric quality that made his skin tingle. He was collecting mineral samples near the abandoned Zephyrian research facility when he heard it. A low, mournful howl that seemed to echo from the metal structures ahead. Marcus paused, his hand instinctively moving to the plasma rifle at his hip. The Zephyrians had left this planet 6 months ago, taking everything valuable with them. Nothing should be alive in those ruins. The howl came again, weaker this time, filled with pain and exhaustion. Marcus felt his chest tighten. He had always been a sucker for animals in distress, even back on Earth. His apartment had been home to 3 rescue dogs, 2 cats, and a parrot that never stopped talking. His ex-girlfriend used to joke that he cared more about animals than people. Against his better judgment, Marcus approached the facility. The Zephyrian architecture was all flowing curves and organic shapes, like someone had grown buildings instead of constructing them. Most of the structure was dark, but faint bioluminescent strips still glowed along the walls, providing enough light to see. The howling was coming from deeper inside the complex. Marcus activated his helmet's night vision and stepped through what had once been the main entrance. The interior was a maze of corridors and chambers, all designed for beings much taller and thinner than humans. The Zephyrian stood nearly 8 feet tall with elongated limbs and pale, almost translucent skin. As he moved deeper into the facility, Marcus noticed something odd. There were scratch marks on the walls, deep gouges that looked recent. Whatever was making those sounds had claws, and they were big ones. His rational mind told him to turn around and report this to the station commander, but the animal sounds grew more desperate with each passing minute. He found the source in what appeared to be a laboratory. The room was filled with empty containment units and abandoned research equipment. In the center, behind a force field that flickered with dying energy, was the most beautiful and terrifying creature Marcus had ever seen. It looked like a wolf, but it was massive. Easily the size of a small horse with fur that shifted between deep purple and silver depending on the light. Its eyes were in brilliant amber color that seemed to glow in the darkness. But what made Marcus's stomach turn were the things crawling on its fur. Parasites. Dozens of them, each about the size of a dinner plate, attached to the creature's back and sides. They pulsed with a sickly green light and seemed to be draining the wolf's energy. The magnificent animal was lying on its side, breathing heavily, its tongue hanging out as it panted in exhaustion. Marcus approached the force field controls. The Zephyrian text was unreadable to him, but the control interface was fairly standard. Most spacefaring species use similar energy patterns for containment fields. He found what looked like the power controls and hesitated. This creature could kill him easily. Those jaws could snap his neck without effort, and those claws could tear through his environmental suit like paper. But looking at the dying animal, Marcus knew he couldn't walk away. The parasites were slowly killing it, and the Zephyrians had just left it here to die. He disabled the force field. The wolf's ears twitched as the humming energy barrier disappeared, but it didn't move. Its breathing was becoming more labored by the minute. Marcus slowly approached, keeping his hands visible and speaking in a soft, calm voice. "Hey there, big guy," he whispered. "I'm not going to hurt you. I want to help." The wolf's amber eyes fixed on him, and Marcus saw intelligence there. This wasn't just an animal. There was something almost human in that gaze, the awareness that sent chills down his spine. The creature watched him approach but didn't try to attack or flee. Marcus knelt beside the massive head and gently placed his hand on the wolf's snout. The fur was softer than he had expected and warm despite the creature's obvious illness. One of the parasites detached from the wolf's shoulder and scuttled toward Marcus's hand. He jerked back instinctively, but the parasite wasn't trying to attack him. Instead, it seemed to recoil from his touch as if his human biology was somehow repulsive to it. The creature made a hissing sound and crawled back to the wolf. "Interesting," Marcus muttered. He reached into his equipment pack and pulled out his portable bioscanner. The device was designed to analyze alien life forms for potential threats or benefits. As he ran it over the parasites, the readings made him smile. The parasites were specifically adapted to Zephyrian biology. Their feeding mechanisms were designed to process the unique proteins and minerals found in Zephyrian blood. Human biology was so different that the parasites couldn't effectively attach to him or drain his energy. But that wasn't the most interesting discovery. According to his scanner, the parasites were also vulnerable to several compounds that were common in human medical supplies. The antiseptic spray in his first aid kit would be like acid to these creatures. Marcus looked into the wolf's amber eyes again. This is going to hurt a little, but I promise it will help. He pulled out the antiseptic spray and began working on the parasites one by one. Each creature hissed and writhed as the chemical burned through its attachment points, causing it to fall away from the wolf's body. The wolf whimpered but held still, as if it understood that Marcus was trying to help. It took nearly an hour to remove all the parasites. By the time he was finished, Marcus's hands were shaking from the delicate work, and his suit's air supply was running low. But the change in the wolf was already visible. Its breathing was stronger and some of the light had returned to its eyes. The wolf lifted its massive head and looked at Marcus with what could only be described as gratitude. Then it did something that made Marcus's heart skip a beat. It spoke. "Thank you." The words formed directly in Marcus's mind, not through his ears. The mental voice was deep and resonant, with a quality that suggested vast intelligence and age. "I am Fenris. You have saved my life, human. This debt will not be forgotten." Marcus staggered backward, his heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. The massive wolf creature had just spoken directly into his mind, and the experience was unlike anything he had ever imagined. It wasn't hearing words so much as having thoughts that weren't his own suddenly appear in his consciousness. "You can talk," Marcus whispered, his voice barely audible even to himself. Fenris slowly pushed himself up into a sitting position, his movement still weak but noticeably stronger than before. The areas where the parasites had been attached were raw and inflamed, but already beginning to heal with a speed that defied biology as Marcus understood it. "Many creatures can communicate telepathically," Fenris replied, his mental voice carrying undertones of amusement. "Your species is unusual in that you cannot. Most spacefaring races develop this ability as they evolve. You humans rely entirely on crude vocalizations and electromagnetic signals." Marcus felt a mix of fascination and embarrassment. Here he was, representing humanity to what was obviously an intelligent alien species. And apparently, they were the galactic equivalent of people who still used smoke signals. "How long were you trapped here?" Marcus asked, settling into a more comfortable position on the laboratory floor. His air supply had enough for another hour, and he found himself intensely curious about this creature. 47 of your days," Fenris answered. "The Zephyrians brought me here as part of their weapons research program. They were attempting to create biological weapons based on my species' natural abilities. When their funding was cut and they were ordered to evacuate, they decided it was easier to leave me here to die than to deal with the complications of transport." The casual way Fenris mentioned being used for weapons research made Marcus's stomach turn. "That's horrible. No being should be treated like that." "Your species has a strange concept of universal rights," Fenris observed. "Most galactic species view other life forms as resources to be used or obstacles to be removed. This moral framework of yours, where you extend compassion even to beings you've never met, is considered a significant weakness by the major powers." Marcus stood up and began examining the laboratory equipment around them. Much of it was beyond his understanding, but some devices looked like they might be useful. "Maybe it's a weakness, but it's who we are. I couldn't just leave you here to die. And that," Fenris said, rising to his full height, "is why your species represents the most significant threat the galaxy has seen in over 1,000,000 years." That stopped Marcus cold. "Threat? We're barely out of our own solar system. Most human colonies are struggling just to grow enough food to survive." Fenris padded over to one of the laboratory windows, his massive form moving with fluid grace. Outside, the alien landscape stretched toward a horizon where 2 small suns were setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. "The Zephyrians have been monitoring your species for over 2 centuries, Fenris explained. "So have the Korth Empire, the Hegemony, and the Elder Council. You humans have a disturbing tendency to treat other species as equals, rather than as subjects or resources. Even more concerning, you actively seek to help and protect beings that cannot benefit you in return." Marcus joined Fenris at the window, looking out at the alien sunset. "That sounds like a good thing to me." "It is terrifying to those in power," Fenris continued. "The Galactic Order has been stable for over 50,000 years. The strong rule the weak. Resources flow upward to the dominant species and everyone knows their place. Then humans arrive, offering mutual aid treaties to species that have been enslaved for millennia. You provide medical assistance to beings whose deaths would be profitable. You share technology with civilizations that have nothing to offer in return. The pieces were starting to come together in Marcus's mind, forming a picture that made him distinctly uncomfortable. So the other species see us as disruptors. More than that, you represent an existential threat to the fundamental structure of galactic civilization. If the subordinate species begin to believe they deserve the same rights and opportunities as their masters, the entire system collapses. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. He had always known that humanity's first steps into galactic politics were complicated, but he hadn't realized they were inadvertently challenging the entire established order. "What about you?" Marcus asked finally. "What's your species' role in all this?" Fenris turned away from the window, his amber eyes meeting Marcus's gaze. "We are weapons. The Fenrir were created by the Elder Council nearly 100,000 years ago as the ultimate enforcers. We are stronger, faster, and more intelligent than any natural species. We can communicate telepathically, track across impossible distances, and our bodies can adapt to almost any environment. We were designed to hunt down and eliminate threats to galactic stability." A chill ran down Marcus's spine. "And now we're the threat." "Yes. The Council has authorized the deployment of my pack to begin systematic elimination of human colonies. We are to make it appear like natural disasters, alien animal attacks, anything except deliberate extermination. The goal is to reduce your population to manageable levels and break your spirit for expansion." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. Dozens of human colonies scattered across multiple star systems, each one home to thousands of people, families, children, researchers and farmers and engineers all trying to build new lives among the stars. And somewhere out there, creatures like Fenris were being sent to kill them all. "How many of you are there?" Marcus asked, his voice barely steady. "My pack consists of 12 hunters. There are 4 other packs being deployed to different sectors of human space. 60 Fenrir in total, each one capable of eliminating an entire colony if necessary." The numbers were overwhelming. Even if Marcus could somehow warn Earth and the colonies, how could humanity defend against creatures that could adapt to any environment and were specifically designed to be perfect predators? "Why are you telling me this?" Marcus asked. "Shouldn't you be trying to kill me right now?" Fenris was quiet for a long moment, his massive head tilted as if considering the question carefully. "You saved my life when you had no obligation to do so. You showed compassion to a being you had never met at considerable risk to yourself. These are not the actions of a species that deserves extinction. So what happens now?" "Now," Fenris said, moving toward the laboratory's exit, "you are going to help me contact my pack and convince them that humanity deserves a chance to prove itself. And I am going to teach you how to fight beings that were designed to be unstoppable killers." Marcus followed Fenris through the corridor, his mind racing with questions and possibilities. Outside, the alien night was falling, and somewhere among the stars, death was coming for his species. But for the first time since landing on this planet, he felt a spark of hope. If one Fenrir could be convinced to change sides, maybe others could be as well. And if Marcus was very lucky and very clever, maybe humanity could find a way to survive this trial by fire and earn their place among the stars. The next morning brought new challenges that Marcus hadn't anticipated. Fenris was recovering quickly from his ordeal with the parasites, but the massive wolf-like creature was also hungry, very hungry, and his dietary requirements were unlike anything Marcus had encountered. "Your human food concentrates are insufficient," Fenris explained as they stood in the facility's abandoned cafeteria. "My species requires specific proteins and minerals that can only be found in living prey. The Zephyrians understood this and provided appropriate sustenance during my imprisonment." Marcus looked around the empty room, noting the strange feeding apparatus that had been designed for beings with very different anatomical needs than humans. "What kind of prey are we talking about?" "Ideally, large herbivores with dense muscle mass and high mineral content in their bones. The native fauna of this planet should suffice, though the taste will be different from what I am accustomed to." The thought of watching Fenris hunt and kill alien animals made Marcus uncomfortable, but he understood that every species had its own survival requirements. "There's something that looks like deer grazing in the valley below the facility." "Would those work?" Fenris moved to the large window that overlooked the planet's surface. His amber eyes focused on the creatures Marcus had mentioned, and even from this distance his predatory instincts were clearly engaged. "They will do," Fenris said, "though I should warn you that my hunting methods may be disturbing to human sensibilities. Your species has largely removed itself from the natural cycle of predation." Marcus nodded. "I understand. Do what you need to do." What followed was both terrifying and beautiful to watch. Fenris moved with fluid grace across the alien landscape, his massive form somehow becoming nearly invisible as he stalked his prey. The deer-like creatures never saw him coming. When he struck, it was with surgical precision that ended their lives instantly and painlessly. As Fenris fed, Marcus used the time to explore more of the abandoned facility. In what appeared to be a communication center, he found equipment that was still partially functional. The Zephyrians had been in such a hurry to evacuate that they hadn't properly secured their systems. Using his portable translator and some creative engineering, Marcus managed to access the facility's database. What he found there made his blood run cold. The files contained detailed reports on human colonies, including population counts, defensive capabilities, and vulnerability assessments. But more disturbing were the psychological profiles. The Zephyrians had been studying human behavior patterns, looking for ways to break human morale and resistance. One file stood out among the rest. It contained communications between the Zephyrian research team and something called the primary coordination node. The messages detailed the deployment of Fenrir packs and included specific targeting priorities. Marcus was reading through the tactical assessments when Fenris returned from his hunt. The massive creature moved silently despite his size, and Marcus only noticed his presence when a shadow fell across the computer terminal. "You have accessed their intelligence files," Fenris observed, looking over Marcus's shoulder at the alien text scrolling across the screen. "Can you read this?" Marcus asked. "My translator is having trouble with some of the technical terms." Fenris studied the screen for a moment. "This file contains the deployment schedule for my pack. According to this information, they should reach the Proxima Centauri colony in 8 standard days." Marcus felt his heart sink. Proxima Centauri was humanity's oldest and largest colony outside the solar system. Over 50,000 people called it home, including his sister and her family. "Is there any way to warn them?" Marcus asked. "Standard communication methods would take weeks to reach them from this distance," Fenris replied. However, the Zephyrians installed quantum communication equipment in this facility. It was used to coordinate their research with other installations. Marcus spun around to face Fenris. "Can you operate it?" "The technology is beyond my understanding. But you humans have shown remarkable aptitude for adapting alien technology to your needs. If anyone could make it work, it would be one of your species." They spent the next several hours working together to understand the quantum communication system. Marcus provided the technical knowledge while Fenris translated the Zephyrian documentation and control interfaces. It was slow, frustrating work, but gradually they began to make progress. The breakthrough came when Marcus realized that the Zephyrian system used quantum entanglement principles similar to humanity's experimental communication networks. By jury-rigging his portable computer to interface with the alien hardware, he was able to establish a connection. "Colony Control, this is Marcus Chen on Kepler 442b. Emergency transmission. Please respond immediately." The response came after nearly an hour of tense waiting. "Marcus, this is Commander Sarah Walsh at Proxima Station. Your signal is coming through very weak and distorted. What's your situation?" Marcus looked at Fenris, who nodded encouragingly. "Commander, I need to speak with someone who has authority over colonial defense. What I'm about to tell you will sound impossible, but lives depend on it. Stand by, Marcus. I'm patching you through to Admiral Harrison." Admiral Harrison's voice came through the static-filled connection with military precision. "Chen, report. What's so urgent that you're using unauthorized alien technology to contact us?" Marcus took a deep breath. "Admiral, there are alien death squads heading for human colonies. Creatures called Fenrir, designed specifically to hunt and kill. They'll reach Proxima in 8 days." The silence that followed stretched for almost a minute. When Admiral Harrison spoke again, his voice was carefully controlled. "That's a serious accusation, Chen. What evidence do you have?" "I'm looking at their deployment files right now. Sir, I have one of these creatures with me. He was abandoned here by the Zephyrians and I helped him. He's willing to help us fight the others. You have an alien predator with you? The Admiral's voice rose slightly. Chen, are you experiencing any symptoms of alien pathogen exposure? Hallucinations, paranoid thoughts, unusual behavior? Marcus felt frustration building in his chest. Sir, I'm fine. The creature's name is Fenris, and he's right here. He can explain better than I can. Marcus looked at Fenris hopefully, but the massive wolf shook his head. Telepathic communication does not work through electronic systems. Only direct mental contact is possible. Admiral, Marcus continued, I know this sounds crazy, but you have to listen. These Fenrir were created by something called the Elder Council to eliminate threats to galactic stability. Humanity is seen as that threat because we treat other species as equals instead of subjects. Even if what you're saying is true, Admiral Harrison replied, how do you propose we defend against these creatures? According to you, they're perfect predators designed to be unstoppable. Fenris stepped closer to the communication equipment. Tell him that Fenrir have weaknesses, he said to Marcus. We are powerful, but we are not invincible. There are ways to fight us and ways to convince us that a target is not worthy of elimination. Marcus relayed this information, along with the tactical details that Fenris provided. The conversation continued for another hour, with Admiral Harrison asking increasingly specific questions about Fenrir capabilities and potential countermeasures. Finally, the Admiral made his decision. Chen, I'm ordering immediate defensive preparations for all human colonies. We'll implement the strategies your alien friend suggested and hope they're effective, but I want you to understand something clearly. Yes, sir? If this is some kind of alien deception designed to make us vulnerable, if these preparations actually make us easier targets, the responsibility will fall on you. Do you understand? Marcus looked at Fenris, whose amber eyes met his with calm confidence. I understand, Admiral, but I trust him. He saved my life, and now he's trying to save all of ours. As the communication ended, Marcus felt the weight of his decision settling on his shoulders. He had just convinced humanity's military leadership to alter their defenses based on the word of an alien predator. If he was wrong, if this was all an elaborate trap, then he had just doomed his own species. But looking at Fenris, Marcus knew he had made the right choice. Sometimes trust was the only weapon that mattered. 3 days had passed since Marcus's desperate communication with Admiral Harrison, and the abandoned Zephyrian facility had become an unlikely war room. Marcus and Fenris worked around the clock, using the alien technology to monitor communications across human space and track the movements of the approaching Fenrir packs. The news was not encouraging. Reports were coming in from the outer colonies of strange sightings and unexplained equipment failures. The Fenrir were already in position, conducting reconnaissance and preparing for their attacks. Your military leaders are implementing the defensive strategies I suggested, Fenris observed as he studied the tactical displays, but they are making critical errors in execution. Marcus looked up from the communication array he was calibrating. What kind of errors? They are treating this as a conventional military threat. Your Admiral Harrison has stationed armed patrols around the colony perimeters and installed motion sensors in defensive patterns. These measures will be completely ineffective against Fenrir tactics. Then what should they be doing? Fenris padded over to the large tactical display that showed the layout of Proxima Colony. With a gesture of his massive paw, he highlighted several areas on the map. Fenrir do not attack defensive positions directly. We infiltrate population centers, study social structures, and identify key individuals whose elimination will cause maximum psychological damage. We then strike at these targets in ways that appear to be accidents or natural causes. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. You're talking about psychological warfare. Precisely. The goal is not simply to kill humans, but to break human morale and convince your species that expansion beyond your home system is too dangerous to continue. A few mysterious deaths in each colony, combined with equipment failures and communication breakdowns, will be enough to send most humans fleeing back to Earth. The tactical implications were staggering. Traditional military defenses would be useless against enemies who could mimic natural disasters and make murders look like accidents. But as Marcus studied the problem, he began to see potential solutions. What if we turn your own tactics against you? Marcus asked. If the other Fenrir are planning to study human social structures, we can use that against them. Fenris tilted his massive head, his amber eyes showing interest. Explain. Marcus moved to the tactical display and began highlighting different areas of the colony map. You said Fenrir identify key individuals for elimination. What if those key individuals were prepared for contact? What if instead of studying us to find weaknesses, the Fenrir encountered humans who understood their nature and could communicate with them? You propose to turn hunters into prey, Fenris said slowly. Use human social adaptability to convert Fenrir to your cause, rather than simply defending against them. Exactly. You changed your mind about humanity. After I showed you compassion when you were vulnerable, maybe other Fenrir would have similar reactions if they encountered humans who understood their situation. Fenris was quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. It is possible, but extremely dangerous. Fenrir are conditioned from birth to follow Elder Council directives. Most of my packmates have never questioned an order, or considered that their targets might be innocent. But you questioned the orders, Marcus pointed out. What made you different? I am older than the others. I have seen the rise and fall of multiple galactic civilizations. Over time, I began to notice patterns in the species we were ordered to eliminate. They were always races that showed potential for disrupting the established order through innovation, compassion, or refusal to accept their assigned position in the galactic hierarchy. Marcus felt a spark of hope. So there might be other Fenrir who have had similar doubts? Perhaps. But approaching them would require precise timing and careful planning. A Fenrir who feels threatened or believes they are being deceived will kill without hesitation. They spent the next several hours developing a strategy that Marcus privately thought was either brilliant or completely insane. Using the Zephyrian communication equipment, they would send coded messages to key personnel in the human colonies. These individuals would be given specific instructions on how to identify and safely approach a Fenrir. The plan relied on several assumptions that made Marcus nervous. First, that the Fenrir would follow predictable patterns in their infiltration attempts. Second, that some of them might be open to questioning their orders. And third, that humans could successfully communicate with creatures designed to be perfect killers. There is one more element we must consider, Fenris said as they finalized their strategy. The Elder Council will not accept the loss of multiple Fenrir packs without investigation. If our plan succeeds, they will send more powerful enforcers. What kind of enforcers? The Void Hunters. Ancient artificial intelligences that were created before the Elder Council, from the time when the galaxy was ruled by machine consciousness. They are few in number, but each one is capable of sterilizing entire star systems. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. How many of them are there? No one knows for certain. They were thought to be extinct until the Council began using them to eliminate species that posed existential threats to galactic stability. The last confirmed deployment was against the Karis Collective 12,000 years ago. Their homeworld is now a dead rock orbiting a cold star. The implications were terrifying, but Marcus forced himself to focus on the immediate problem. We'll deal with the Void Hunters if and when they show up. Right now, we need to save the colonies from the Fenrir. Over the next day, they transmitted their coded warnings to every human colony within range of the communication system. The messages were disguised as routine maintenance updates and equipment recalls, but they contained detailed instructions for colony administrators on how to handle unexpected encounters with large, intelligent predators. The first test of their strategy came sooner than expected. A priority message arrived from Kepler 438c, a small mining colony in the Lynx constellation. This is Director Kim at Kepler Mining Station 7. We have a situation that matches the parameters in your recent communication, requesting immediate guidance. Marcus felt his heart rate spike as he opened the communication channel. Director Kim, this is Marcus Chen. Can you describe your situation? We have what appears to be a large wolf-like creature in our main processing facility. It's not attacking anyone, but it's clearly intelligent and seems to be studying our operations. 3 of our senior engineers have reported feeling like they're being telepathically scanned. Marcus looked at Fenris, who nodded approvingly. Director, follow Protocol 7 exactly as described in the maintenance update. Do not attempt to threaten or contain the creature. Assign your most emotionally stable personnel to make contact using the specified procedures. Understood. Standing by for further instructions. The next few hours were the longest of Marcus's life. They maintained open communication with the mining station, while Director Kim and her team attempted to establish peaceful contact with the Fenrir. According to Fenris, this particular pack member was named Shull, one of the younger hunters but known for his analytical nature. Finally, Director Kim's voice crackled through the communication system with obvious excitement and relief. Marcus, it worked. The creature is communicating with our xenobiologist, Dr. Martinez. They're having some kind of telepathic conversation. What is he saying? Marcus asked. Dr. Martinez says the creature is asking questions about human social structures and our reasons for establishing colonies. It seems genuinely curious about our motivations rather than hostile. Fenris moved closer to the communication equipment. Ask Dr. Martinez to explain to Skull that humans establish colonies not to conquer or exploit, but to learn and grow. Tell him that human expansion is driven by curiosity and the desire to understand the universe, not by the need to dominate other species. Marcus relayed this message and waited. After a few minutes, Director Kim responded. The creature says its name is Skull, and it wants to know why humans helped you when you were in danger. Dr. Martinez is explaining the concept of compassion and mutual aid. The conversation continued for nearly an hour. Through Dr. Martinez's descriptions, Marcus could follow the progression of Skull's understanding as the young Fenrir grappled with concepts that were foreign to his conditioning and training. Finally, the breakthrough came. Marcus, Director Kim reported, Skull says he cannot complete his mission. He believes that humanity represents something valuable that should be protected rather than destroyed. He's asking to speak with others of his kind to share what he has learned. Marcus looked at Fenris, whose amber eyes glowed with satisfaction. 1 down, the massive wolf said. 11 to go. But even as Marcus felt a surge of hope, he knew their real challenges were just beginning. Converting individual Fenrir was only the first step. They still had to face the reaction of the Elder Council and find a way to secure humanity's place in a galactic order that saw compassion as a threat to stability. The war for humanity's survival had begun, and it would be fought not with weapons, but with the very qualities that made humans human. The success at Kepler Mining Station 7 had given Marcus and Fenris hope, but it also brought unexpected complications. Within hours of Skull's conversion, the Zephyrian communication array began intercepting coded transmissions from across human space. The Elder Council was aware that something had gone wrong with their Fenrir deployment. The primary coordination node is demanding status reports from all pack leaders. Fenris translated as alien text scrolled across the communication display. When those reports fail to arrive, they will investigate. Marcus was working frantically to establish contact with the remaining human colonies, trying to coordinate the delicate process of converting hostile predators into allies. Each successful contact required precise timing and careful preparation, and not all attempts were going well. Marcus, this is Colony Administrator Torres on Titan's Hope, came a panicked transmission. The creature here has killed 2 of our people. Dr. Reeves tried to make telepathic contact like you instructed, but something went wrong. The thing just tore him apart. Marcus felt sick to his stomach. Administrator Torres, evacuate the area immediately. Do not attempt further contact. Can you describe what happened? Reeves approached the creature in the hydroponics bay. It seemed calm at first, but when he got within about 10 meters, it just went berserk. It was like something triggered its attack response. Fenris listened to the transmission with growing concern. This suggests that one of the pack leaders is involved. Pack leaders are older, more experienced, and much more resistant to conversion. They also have conditioning that triggers violent responses to certain types of mental contact. Which pack leader would be assigned to that sector? Marcus asked. Fenris consulted the tactical displays they had constructed using the Zephyrian intelligence files. Based on the deployment patterns, it would be either Gary or Freki. Both are among the oldest and most loyal of my packmates. They have served the Elder Council for over 20,000 years. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. While Marcus and Fenris had successfully converted 3 more Fenrir over the past 2 days, they had also lost contact with 2 colonies entirely. The converted Fenrir were now helping to coordinate defensive strategies, but the pack leaders were proving to be a much more dangerous threat than anticipated. Then the communication array detected something that made both Marcus and Fenris freeze with terror. A new type of signal was approaching human space, one that Fenris recognized immediately. Void Hunter, Fenris whispered, his mental voice carrying a fear that Marcus had never heard before. The Council has deployed one of the ancient machines. How much time do we have? Marcus asked. Unknown. Void hunters operate outside normal space-time constraints. It could arrive in hours or days. When it does arrive, it will conduct a comprehensive analysis of the situation before taking action. Marcus stared at the sensor readings that showed the approaching artificial intelligence. Everything they had accomplished, all the careful work of converting individual Fenrir and building trust with human colonies, could be undone by a single ancient machine that saw the universe in terms of equations and probabilities. What are its capabilities? Marcus asked. Void hunters can manipulate matter at the molecular level, control gravitational fields, and process information at quantum speeds. They are also equipped with weapons that can crack planets and extinguish stars. But their greatest strength is their analytical capability. They can predict the behavior of entire civilizations based on limited data samples. A new idea began forming in Marcus's mind, one that was either inspired or completely suicidal. What if we don't try to hide from it? What if we confront it directly and force it to analyze humanity on our terms? Fenris turned his massive head to stare at Marcus with amber eyes that seemed to glow with sudden understanding. You propose to put your entire species on trial before a machine that has exterminated civilizations for millions of years. Better a trial than an execution without warning, Marcus replied. If this void hunter is going to judge humanity anyway, maybe we can influence what evidence it considers. They spent the next several hours developing what Marcus privately called the most important presentation in human history. Using the converted Fenrir as intermediaries, they coordinated with every human colony to compile a comprehensive record of human achievements, values, and potential contributions to galactic civilization. The challenge was presenting this information in a way that an ancient artificial intelligence would find compelling. Void hunters thought in terms of mathematical models and probability matrices, not emotional appeals or moral arguments. Focus on efficiency and innovation, Fenris advised as they structured the data compilation. Show how human approaches to problem-solving produce superior results compared to traditional galactic methods. Demonstrate that human compassion is not weakness, but a more effective form of social organization. The converted Fenrir proved invaluable in this process. Each one contributed examples of human behavior they had observed that demonstrated superior tactical thinking, resource management, and conflict resolution. Skull was particularly helpful, having spent extensive time studying human mining operations and discovering several innovations that exceeded Zephyrian efficiency by significant margins. As they worked, reports continued to arrive from across human space. The pack leaders were becoming increasingly aggressive in their attacks, no longer bothering to make the deaths appear accidental. Jerry had devastated the agricultural complex on New Eden, while Freaky had sabotaged the life support systems on 3 separate orbital stations. But there was also good news. The converted Fenrir were successfully recruiting others from their packs. Each conversion created a cascade effect. As the newly converted hunters contacted their packmates and shared their experiences with human compassion and innovation. We now have 17 Fenrir working with human colonies, Fenris reported as he updated their tactical displays. But the 3 pack leaders continue to resist conversion and are causing significant casualties. Can the converted Fenrir stop them? Marcus asked. Fenrir are conditioned never to fight each other except in formal dominance challenges. The pack leaders could be defeated, but it would require multiple hunters working together and accepting significant losses. Marcus was about to respond when the communication array erupted with priority alerts. The Void Hunter had arrived in the outer edge of human space and was beginning its analysis. Long-range sensors detected massive energy discharges as the ancient machine scanned entire star systems in seconds. It's conducting preliminary assessments, Fenris translated from the incoming data streams. Population distributions, technological capabilities, resource utilization patterns. The analysis will take approximately 6 hours to complete. Marcus felt his mouth go dry. 6 hours to convince a machine older than human civilization that his species deserved to exist. Can we communicate with it directly? Marcus asked. Void hunters do not communicate during analysis phases. They gather data, process it according to their programming, and then act on their conclusions. The only way to influence the outcome is to ensure that the data it discovers supports the conclusion we want. They transmitted their comprehensive data package to every human colony and orbital station, with instructions to make sure all human activities for the next 6 hours demonstrated the principles they wanted to emphasize: innovation, cooperation, compassion, and efficiency. Across human space, colonists worked together on complex projects that showcased human problem-solving abilities. Scientists shared research data freely between colonies. Medical personnel provided aid to anyone who needed it, regardless of their ability to pay. Engineers collaborated on infrastructure improvements that benefited entire communities rather than individual interests. As the hours passed, Marcus watched the Void Hunter's progress through human space. The ancient machine moved from system to system with methodical precision, cataloging everything it observed. Each scan added more data to its analysis matrix, building a comprehensive model of human civilization and its potential impact on galactic stability. Finally, with less than an hour remaining in the analysis period, Marcus received a transmission that made his heart skip several beats. "This is Pack Leader Gary," the mental voice came through the converted Fenrir network. "I wish to speak with the human who saved Fenris and corrupted my pack." Marcus looked at Fenris, who nodded grimly. "This is your moment," Fenris said. "Jerry is the oldest and most influential of the pack leaders. If you can convert him, the others will follow. If you fail, he will kill you and continue his mission to eliminate humanity." Taking a deep breath, Marcus activated the communication link. "This is Marcus Chen, I'm listening. You have cost me most of my pack, human. They now refuse to follow orders and speak of compassion and cooperation as if these concepts have meaning. I should kill you for this corruption." "But you haven't," Marcus replied carefully. "You're talking to me instead. Why?" There was a long pause before Gary responded. "Because in 20,000 years of service to the Elder Council, I have never seen hunters abandon their missions willingly. Fenrir do not." Marcus stood in the communication center of the abandoned Zephyrian facility, knowing that the next few minutes would determine the fate of his entire species. Through the quantum communication link, he could sense the presence of Gary, the ancient Fenrir pack leader whose mind was older than human civilization, and whose loyalty to the Elder Council had never wavered in 20 millennia of service. "You wish to show me what it means to be human." Gary's mental voice carried undertones of skepticism and barely controlled violence. "Very well. But know that if your demonstration fails to satisfy me, I will personally ensure that every human colony burns before the Void Hunter completes its analysis." Marcus felt Fenris move closer, offering silent support. Around them, the facility's displays showed the massive artificial intelligence continuing its methodical scan of human space. Less than an hour remained before it would render its final judgment. "Being human," Marcus began, "means choosing compassion even when it's dangerous. When I found Fenris, he was dying from parasites that the Zephyrians had left him to suffer with. I could have walked away. It would have been safer. Instead, I chose to help a being I had never met, knowing it might kill me." "Sentimentality," Jerry replied dismissively. "Many species display protective instincts toward their own kind. This proves nothing." "But Fenris wasn't my kind," Marcus continued. "He was an alien predator designed to kill humans. I helped him. Anyway, because suffering is suffering, regardless of what species experiences it. That's what makes humans different." Through the communication link, Marcus could sense Gary's confusion. The concept of extending aid to potential enemies was apparently so foreign to the pack leader that he struggled to process it. "Your council sees this as weakness," Marcus pressed on. "They believe that treating other species as equals will destabilize their carefully ordered galaxy. But what if they're wrong? What if cooperation is actually more efficient than domination?" "The galactic order has been stable for 50,000 years, Gary responded. "Your species has existed for barely a fraction of that time. How can you claim to understand civilization better than those who created it?" Marcus had anticipated this argument. "Because we approach problems differently. We don't just maintain stability. We actively work to improve conditions for everyone involved. Let me show you what I mean." Working with the converted Fenrir throughout human space, Marcus began transmitting real-time data from the colonies to Gary. The pack leader watched as human agricultural specialists on New Eden shared their crop rotation techniques with struggling farmers on 3 different worlds. Medical researchers on Proxima Colony transmitted their latest vaccine developments to every human settlement, free of charge. Engineers collaborated across impossible distances to solve infrastructure problems that no single colony could handle alone. Your species expends resources on beings who cannot repay you, Jerry observed. This is inefficient. Is it? Marcus asked. When we help struggling colonies become self-sufficient, they become trading partners and sources of innovation. When we share medical knowledge freely, we create a stronger, healthier population that can contribute more to collective progress. When we treat other species as equals, we gain allies instead of enemies. Marcus could sense something shifting in Gary's mental presence, a crack in the absolute certainty that had sustained him for millennia. To press his advantage, Marcus opened another communication channel. Jerry, I want you to speak with someone. Her name is Dr. Sarah Chen, and she's my sister. She works at the Xenobiology Lab on Proxima Colony. Sarah's voice came through the quantum link with characteristic enthusiasm. Hello? Marcus said there was someone I should meet. Are you the Fenrir he told me about? I am Gary, pack leader of the Fourth Hunt, came the formal response. Your brother believes that speaking with you will demonstrate human nature. I remain skeptical. Well, Sarah laughed. He's always been optimistic about people. What would you like to know? Why do you study alien life forms? What do you hope to gain from this knowledge? Sarah was quiet for a moment, clearly thinking about her answer. I study xenobiology because every species we encounter teaches us something new about the universe. The crystalline organisms from Vega 4 showed us entirely new approaches to energy storage. The hive minds of the Kepler system taught us about distributed consciousness and group problem solving. Each species we meet makes us better at understanding life itself. And what do you do with this knowledge? We share it, Sarah replied simply. All our research is transmitted to Earth and every human colony, but we also try to share it with the species we study, if they're willing. The Vegans were fascinated to learn how their energy storage systems could be adapted for space travel. The Kepler hives were interested in our approaches to individual creativity and innovation. Marcus watched through the tactical displays as Gary processed this information. The ancient pack leader was witnessing something that the Galactic Order had never seen before. A species that actively sought to elevate others rather than dominate them. Your sister's work contradicts everything I've been taught about species interaction, Gary admitted. The strong should rule the weak. Knowledge should be hoarded by those who discover it. Resources should flow to those with the power to take them. But what if there's a better way? Sarah asked. What if cooperation produces better results than domination? At that moment, alerts began flooding the communication array. The Void Hunter had completed its preliminary analysis and was requesting additional data on human social structures and technological development patterns. More importantly, it was also scanning the communications between Marcus, Gary, and the human colonies. The ancient machine is listening to our conversation, Fenris warned. Everything we say now becomes part of its final analysis. Marcus realized this was their moment. The Void Hunter was witnessing a real-time demonstration of human values in action. A conversation that could serve as evidence either for or against his species. Gary, Marcus said, I want to ask you something, and I want your honest answer. In 20,000 years of serving the Elder Council, eliminating species and maintaining galactic order, have you ever seen the galaxy become a better place? The silence that followed stretched for long minutes. When Gary finally responded, his mental voice carried a weariness that seemed to span millennia. No. I have seen civilizations rise and fall. I have watched species discover wonders beyond imagination, only to have them destroyed for disrupting stability. I have eliminated races that might have contributed great things to the galaxy, simply because they refused to accept their assigned position in the hierarchy. Then maybe it's time for a different approach, Marcus suggested gently. Maybe it's time to try cooperation instead of domination. Through the communication network, Marcus could sense the other Fenrir listening to their pack leader's words. These were creatures that had been bred and conditioned for absolute loyalty, yet they were hearing their oldest leader question the very foundations of their existence. If I accept your proposal, Gary said slowly, if I believe that humanity, deserves protection rather than elimination. What then? The Elder Council will not simply accept this decision. They will send others to complete our mission. Then we'll convince them too, Marcus replied. One conversation at a time, one demonstration of human values at a time. Maybe the galaxy doesn't have to be ruled by fear and domination. Maybe there's room for something better. The tactical displays showed the Void Hunter beginning its final approach to the core human systems. Within minutes, it would render its judgment on humanity's right to exist. Marcus. Gary's mental voice carried a tone of decision that sent chills down Marcus's spine. I have served the Elder Council for 20,000 years without question. Today, for the first time, I choose to disobey a direct order. Across human space, the remaining pack leaders received a telepathic command from their eldest leader. One by one, Frankie and the others stood down from their missions and began establishing peaceful contact with human colonies. The Fenrir packs are neutralized, Fenris reported with obvious relief. But the real test is still coming. On the displays, the Void Hunter had completed its final calculations and was beginning to transmit its findings to the Elder Council. In moments, they would know whether humanity had passed the test that decided the fate of entire civilizations. Marcus looked around the alien facility that had become humanity's war room, at the displays showing colonies across dozens of star systems at Fenris whose trust had started this entire chain of events. Whatever happened next, they had given their species the best chance possible. Now they could only wait for an ancient machine to decide if compassion was a strength worth preserving or a weakness that demanded elimination. The Void Hunter's analysis was complete. Marcus stood in the communication center watching the tactical displays as the ancient artificial intelligence finished its comprehensive evaluation of human civilization. Every conversation, every act of cooperation, every demonstration of human values over the past week had been cataloged and processed by a machine that had been making life or death decisions about entire species for millions of years. The silence that followed was deafening. Across human space, colonists waited in their homes and workplaces, knowing that something momentous was happening but not understanding the scope of what hung in the balance. Only a handful of people knew that the next few minutes would determine whether humanity had a future among the stars. The transmission is beginning, Fenris announced. His mental voice tense with anticipation. The communication array activated, but instead of the expected data stream to the Elder Council, something unprecedented happened. The Void Hunter opened a direct communication channel to every human colony simultaneously. Human species designation: Homo sapiens. The artificial voice that emerged from the speakers was unlike anything Marcus had ever heard. It carried the weight of geological ages and the precision of quantum mathematics, yet somehow conveyed a sense of measured consideration. Analysis complete. Judgment rendered. Marcus felt his heart stop beating. Around him, the displays showed that similar transmissions were being received on every human world. The Void Hunter was addressing his entire species directly, bypassing the normal protocols that would have sent its findings only to the Elder Council. Initial assessment indicated high probability of species termination based on standard galactic stability parameters. Subject species demonstrates characteristics historically associated with civilizational disruption: excessive cooperation across genetic lines, resource allocation based on need rather than power, persistent attempts to elevate subordinate species beyond assigned hierarchical positions. The clinical language sent chills down Marcus's spine. Every quality that humans considered virtuous was being listed as evidence for their destruction. However, the Void Hunter continued, extended analysis reveals significant statistical anomalies requiring revised calculations. Marcus exchanged glances with Fenris, whose amber eyes reflected the same desperate hope that Marcus felt. Subject species exhibits innovation rates 347% above galactic median. Problem-solving efficiency demonstrates consistent improvement over time, rather than expected decline. Social cohesion increases rather than decreases under stress conditions. Resource utilization optimization shows continuous advancement, rather than plateau patterns observed in mature civilizations. The artificial intelligence was describing humanity in purely mathematical terms. But Marcus began to understand what it was really saying. Humans didn't just maintain civilizations, they actively improved them. Most significant anomaly: cooperation strategies employed by subject species produce superior outcomes compared to dominance-based models used by established galactic powers. Statistical analysis indicates 73.6% probability that human methodologies would improve overall galactic efficiency if widely adopted. Marcus felt a surge of hope so intense it was almost painful. The Void Hunter wasn't just considering humanity's right to exist. It was evaluating whether human approaches might actually be better than the current galactic order. Additional factor: subject species has successfully converted designed enforcement assets to alternative operational parameters through non-coercive persuasion. 23 Fenrir units now operate in protective rather than eliminative capacity. This represents unprecedented deviation from original programming, achieved without force or conditioning modification. Through the communication network, Marcus could sense Gary and the other converted Fenrir listening to this assessment. These ancient predators had chosen to protect humanity rather than destroy it, and that choice was now being factored into calculations that would determine the future of galactic civilization. Preliminary recommendation: subject species demonstrates characteristics beneficial to long-term galactic development. Standard termination protocols are contraindicated. The relief that washed over Marcus was so intense that his knees nearly buckled, but the Void Hunter wasn't finished. However, integration of subject species into existing galactic order presents significant stability risks. Elder Council authority structures cannot accommodate species that refuses hierarchical subordination. Compromise solution required. Marcus's moment of relief evaporated. The Void Hunter was looking for a middle ground between extermination and full acceptance, and that middle ground might still be unacceptable to humanity. Proposed resolution: establishment of independent sector for human expansion under direct Void Hunter oversight. Subject species will be permitted to develop according to natural behavioral patterns, while remaining isolated from existing galactic power structures. Regular assessments will determine future integration possibilities. It was a conditional reprieve. Humanity would be allowed to survive and expand, but only in isolation from the rest of galactic civilization. They would be living in a kind of cosmic nature preserve, protected but separate. Before Marcus could process the full implications of this offer, another voice joined the transmission. It was Jerry, speaking with the authority of 20 millennia of service to the Galactic Order. Void Hunter designation 7739 Alpha, the ancient Fenrir said formally. I wish to present additional evidence for consideration. State your evidence. Fenrir Prime Unit Gary. In the past 7 standard days, I have observed human behavioral patterns under extreme stress conditions. When faced with existential threat, this species did not resort to violence or deception. Instead, they chose communication and cooperation. They extended trust to beings designed to kill them. They shared knowledge and resources even when doing so might compromise their own survival. Marcus listened in amazement as Gary continued his testimony. Furthermore, the humans successfully modified Fenrir operational parameters, not through force or manipulation, but by demonstrating alternative possibilities. They showed us that our purpose could be protection rather than elimination, cooperation rather than domination. In 20,000 years of service, no species has ever succeeded in changing Fenrir behavior through persuasion alone. Your assessment, Fenrir Prime Unit Gary. This species represents evolution beyond current galactic paradigms. Their methodology should be studied and potentially adopted rather than contained or eliminated. I formally recommend full integration with expanded autonomy to develop new social frameworks. The silence that followed seemed to stretch forever. Marcus could almost hear the Void Hunter's quantum processors working through countless calculations, weighing possibilities and probabilities that spanned millions of years of galactic history. Assessment acknowledged. The Void Hunter finally responded. Recommendations incorporated into final analysis. Another pause, shorter this time. Revised judgment. Subject species demonstrates sufficient value to warrant protection and development support. Previous isolation recommendation withdrawn. New parameters. Humanity granted full galactic citizenship with autonomous sector development rights. Elder Council authority over human expansion terminated. Void Hunter Unit 7739 Alpha, assigned as permanent liaison and protection asset. Marcus felt the ground shift beneath his feet. Not only had humanity been granted survival, they had been given something no species in galactic history had ever achieved: independence from the Elder Council's authority. Human representative Marcus Chen, the Void Hunter, addressed him directly. "You are designated as primary contact for species integration protocols. Report to Proxima Colony within 14 standard days for briefing on galactic citizenship requirements and opportunities." The transmission ended, leaving Marcus staring at displays that showed celebrations erupting across human space as the news spread. Colonists who had been living under a death sentence were now citizens of a galaxy that had just acknowledged their right to exist and expand on their own terms. Fenris padded over and sat beside Marcus, his massive presence somehow comforting despite everything they had been through. "You did it," Fenris said simply. "You saved not just your own species but potentially every species that comes after. The Void Hunter's decision creates precedent. Other civilizations will now be evaluated based on their potential contributions rather than just their threat to stability." Marcus looked around the abandoned Zephyrian facility that had become the birthplace of a new galactic order. It seemed impossible that everything had started with him finding a dying wolf and deciding to help. "No," Marcus replied, placing his hand on Fenris's massive head. "We did it together." Outside the facility's windows, the alien sunset painted the sky in brilliant colors as two species that had been designed to be enemies looked forward to a future they would build as allies. Somewhere among the stars, the Void Hunter was beginning its journey to Proxima Colony, carrying with it the promise of a galaxy where compassion was strength and cooperation was the path to survival. The age of human expansion had begun, and it would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen.